Right. History. The X Project's history. We've seen the origins. The father obviously thought he wasn't going to have an England to come back to, so couldn't do much sitting on a ship out in the Atlantic or wherever. So what would one do? There's nothing. They said that if England had been invaded, they'd have had to gone to America. He didn't particularly want to do that, and he was a fighter anyway, so he wasn't going to let them do that. So anyway, history. After all that, after the Second World War, they thought the Russians were coming, so there was still scope for a resistance. And my father started, first of all, mapping all the armories, police, army, guns, even down to gun shops, and saying to the people who were the key holders, whoever they may be, the situation code, which is still on the internet now, when the situation code gets to a certain number and certain colour, shove everything in the back of a van and go to a preset place, wherever that may be. There was 3 rallying areas and 1 withdrawal area, which was Snowdonia, which, don't tell my family this, but this is one reason why I moved to Wales. Lock, stock and barrel. I gave up a £40,000 a year job and had to go over there. So we moved the whole family over there, including my mother. And so we're a short drive from Snowdonia National Park. And we have an organisation up there who actually run sort of bushcrafty type things. And they have mapped the whole area and the ins and the outs, where to put machine gun posts, where to put blockades, etc. So that's all been done. But that's only worst case scenario. Rallying areas, I can't tell you where they are at this moment. So it was all set up for an invasion, basically. All the explosives, even down to civilian explosives providers and quarries and everything. Most people knew where to take the explosives to get it out of the hands of the invaders and into the hands of the resistance in a hurry. And he spent a lot of time setting that up. And for some reason, which I still don't understand, because he was posted abroad, he was the ambassador for quite a few different places, it's all on the internet, he basically thought that the resistance would come from the embassies, i.e. England's been invaded, and we would all be coordinating it from all our embassies around the world. So I don't know how they were going to do that. I'd much prefer to be in the thick of it in England. But that's what he thought, so that's what they did. So anyway, I'm going to say this history up to the point where I met my father again, because he wasn't in my life for, although he paid for a boarding school which was mainly diplomatic children, which was a good fun, and I learnt all my weaponry there, starting with number 4 rifle, Bren gun, Sterling's self-loading rifle, GPMG, 3.5-inch bazooka, 2-inch mortar and 1-inch Veery pistols. I learnt all that while I was in the cadets, and I was the storeman for 5 years. So I had these things in pieces all over the floor, and we still have them, or some of those same items today. Same make, not the actual same item, because I think my school has now got SA-80s, and I suppose all the Bren guns and the number 4 rifles all went back to Donington, where they keep the British Army weapons. So anyway, history. So it got to there. Then he thought, it will probably the problem is going to be all over the world, and he knew that there wouldn't really be a war as such anymore. There might be the odd bit of fighting here and there, but it will be all resistance movements. So he started going global, because he was there already in the embassies. And this was not his job. This was what he was doing off his own back to for the time. And he put, I'm thinking, he put my stepbrother, my oldest stepbrother, was in a boarding school as well. So he was out of the way and probably didn't know anything. But I'm in contact with him now, so I'm going to find out. So anyway, so he started going global and started thinking about some sort of deterrent. Because what was happening, tax money was coming into countries, and the leader of the country, depending on where it was on the scale, third world to major, these were just taking the money. Anything charitable that came in, offshore account, Swiss bank, Marcus in the Philippines, offshore account, Swiss bank, and he was getting more and more frustrated with this. And obviously when I did the UFO thing and told him about that, because they were doing this government thing, a little project between about 4 of them, set up by a minister, to try and decide whether money could be eliminated, which, as you know, will solve 99% of the problems. Nobody would better pinch anything, so it won't be worth anything, etc. Which goes from government corruption down to a kid's toy. No, it just won't happen. So this was part of it, and he thought if we could have some sort of deterrent, which would say to countries, look, stop doing that, and they'd have to stop doing it, otherwise they'd be eliminated. So there was a, and when the Berlin Wall came down, we got our break, basically, which I can't say what that is at this moment. But as you know, there was a lot of stuff flying about, and a lot of stuff went missing, and my dad had the job off his own back of mopping some of it up so it didn't fall into the hands of terrorists, with money from the globalists, which shall remain absolutely nameless because we've had to cut them out of it because of the depopulation thing. They think there's too many of us. So basically it's all held by us. But I can't say what that is at the moment because it would probably attract the wrong attention. Unless, we do have people in a lot of different places in the government who feed us information. So we should know if anybody finds out. But anyway, I'm going too much into it now. But so there's the history up until the point. Now, meanwhile, I was living in Milton Keynes, just up the road, in a house, one of the first houses I bought, 24,000, 1984, and around about, I can't remember exactly when, because it was sort of on and off. Bletchley Park, which used to be the old code breaking centre down in Bletchley, only 5 minutes from my last house. British Telecom were doing all their training there, and it shut. And there was a big mansion there where Churchill used to go, and they boarded all that up and virtually shut the place down. It was going to become a housing estate. And the mayor of Milton Keynes, Roger Bristow, virtually saved it single-handed, or set the ball rolling for it to be saved. And I mean, even we went there, and I was one of the people on the team to take the boards off the mansion. The old maintenance engineer got the heating going, and there was tons of other buildings, as you know, all the huts there, and there was 12,000 people working there at the end of the war. So you can imagine how many huts and things. Churchill used to come to Bletchley Station, walk the other way to everybody else on the platform, and come up in a tunnel to underneath the mansion. And that tunnel, we never found it while I was there, but it's been found now, basically, full of concrete. I had vehicles at Bletchley Park in the MT section. Then I joined the German section. But at some point, we thought, for the public good, we would create a very secretive organisation that sounded like something was still happening at the park. That was the idea, which was Project X. So, now why it was called Project X was because the X in mathematics can be any number. And we had 100 odd projects which are all on the internet. So even if you had something small like buying an airsoft gun and upgrading it, that could become a project. Then obviously there was the big projects. So at Bletchley, we were fully underway. We had Abbott self-propelled gun, armoured cars, Land Rovers, 350 odd weapons. Weapons in the British, the American and the German sections. We used to do reenactments. We used to spend the whole weekend there. We used to go on patrol at night because the kids used to try and break in and nick stuff, so we were there quite a lot. Now obviously a change came. The Project X was sort of ticking over. I had met my dad again. So what had happened was I was a chauffeur at the time, and one day our distribution director leant over to me in the car and said, we were on the way to the House of Commons, and he said, oh, by the way, your dad's chairing the meeting today. And I thought, I said, send him my regards. Now I don't know, looking back at it now, I don't know if it was a mistake or not, because we met in London at my mother and him, when they were together, I'm reading about it now in her diaries, 1960, had a house in Longmore Street, number 32 Longmore Street I think it was. And when I went down there, I think Geoffrey Peterson, I don't know whether he was still working there or not, still living there, I don't know, but he used to turn up at the cafe on the corner on Victoria, Italian cafe, somewhere where I could park. We were still on the yellow lines, but we used to go in, get our bit of fresh pizza that the girl used to do at lunchtime. She used to make 6 pieces at a time, square, on a tray. It was the best pizza I'd ever tasted. So I used to say to him, I'll meet you there. Couldn't park in Longmore Street. It was all yellow lined up completely. So I used to park on a single yellow line, and we used to sit there and chat. And sometimes the warden would come, and I'd drive around the block and come back, So which is what we did most of the time in London. But basically, we had long talks, and I said to him, look, you want to come up to Bletchley Park to see all the goodies, you know. I said we've got a thing called Project X running, where X is the number of the project, and there's about 100 projects. All little things and big things, you know, not just hobby items, but big projects as well. So they're all listed on the internet at the moment. I think it's www.project-x.org.uk/project listing, I think it is, .html, or project list. I can't remember. So we'd sit in the car talking, and I said to him, look, you've got to come to Bletchley, I'll take you for a ride in the tank and all that. But he was sort of not very with me. And then he said, a couple of minutes later, he said, why did you call it Project X? And I said, oh, because of this, the number. He said, well, that's the name of a manual that I created in the 50s and 60s. I said, oh, that's funny, sort of thing. Didn't think anything of it. So he got out of the car and I drove off to get my director. So then the next video will be what happened at Bletchley Park. It's quite detailed, and we still, when he left, we still didn't even know whether he was playing along with our little Project X, or whether this was something real. I didn't know about it till maybe 2 years later, or 1 year later, I think, which will be the video after that, my major role, the first major role where I had to go abroad and acquire some stuff. But I'll tell you that. So that is really the history. There was so by the time we get to the Bletchley Park bit, the merger happens at Bletchley Park with me and our two organisations. But basically, up till that point, he had secured all the embassies with information, which were in books in a safe, and they were in brown paper with string round them, basically saying do not open unless the country's invaded. So, you know, nobody could open them, nobody could look at them. And then they were all collected up and destroyed when electronic storage came in. And now, 512 gigabyte SD card, like I think the one in there, has got all the manuals on it. That's every manual ever produced by the United States, Britain, some Russian, Czechoslovakian, Mossad, Italian, Israeli, because they are really good at what they do, there's no doubt. Obviously because they've been fighting for hundreds of years and have got the threat of somebody coming across the border most of the time. So, you know, they were good for the stuff. So we've got, this is video number 2, the history. Probably can't see that, because for some reason this camera picks up everything really bright. In fact, the reason why I'm yellow is because these LEDs along here, they might look white on there, but they're actually red. Because they're I think they're damp, and they revert to their red, and then they start disappearing after that. There's 3 down there going. We have to replace them. Yeah, there's 3, quite a lot gone up there. But they did all change colour once and do nice things. But now they've because this was going to be a sauna, you see, the previous owners, but it never happened. So that is really as far as we've got regarding the history. This was all done off his own back, not telling anyone except perhaps at each embassy that he went to. There would be a certain person who'd have to know, and they would get a PX number. Now the PX numbers are, I think they're 6 or 7 figure numbers. So depending on what the job is, depending on how many figures you've got. Personnel, I think, are 5 figures. 6 figures, I can't remember. But again, that is on the internet. I'm not sure whether I've taken that off. I think because we're at such a high situation code, all those people have been taken off. I think the lists are blank at the moment. But if it goes below halfway through the yellow section, it's a traffic light, green, yellow and red. Goes halfway down through the yellow section again, I think it'll all come back on. So you'll see it. But yeah, so that's it for history. I can't think of anything else at this minute. So anything that would be any good for a resistance movement, the key holders were told, they were given the Project X number, given the badge, they might have got a ID, but generally they are passive members and not active members. Active members get the passes. But yeah, so police armourer, you know, they've probably all got them. Depends how many weapons they've got, what type. You know, there are private collectors who are on the system, you know, so I can't say where they're listed. Generally, it's not on paper. Okay, thanks a lot.